It feels like a hot minute since a Harlan Coben adaptation dropped on Netflix, or 2 months for those who are properly counting, and once again the mystery writer is back with another tantalising yet somewhat disappointing drama. Much like The Woods, Just One Look is a Polish adaptation, and while the story itself isn't bad in principle, the execution leaves a lot to be desired. Given the sheer number of these Coben adaptations on Netflix, and there are a lot, they have undoubtedly begun to feel a bit formulaic, and this 6-episode series honestly feels like someone asked ChatGPT to create a Harlan Coben mystery and then adapted that to the small screen. All the hallmarks are here, like the haunted main character with a tragic past, the amnesia trope that everybody loves, the crazy bad guy, and the supporting characters hiding the mystery from said main character. But the way this has been cobbled together certainly leaves a lot to be desired. The story here revolves around a happily married woman called Greta, who gets her holiday photos developed, only to find that there's one bizarre snap amongst the pile involving a bunch of strangers that she doesn't recognize. Consulting her husband, Jacek, only raises questions as he vanishes after hurriedly calling someone that night, seemingly hinting that he's been keeping secrets from his wife. While all this is going on, a disgraced ex-detective is on the hunt for the killer of his daughter, Alexandra, who appears to have been killed as part of an assassination. Naturally, these two storylines converge, with the glue holding everything together, seeming to be a fire that started back at a concert in 2009, which took the lives of 28 people. Naturally, our titular character Greta has amnesia and struggles to remember anything from that night, despite being a figurehead at this event. Unfortunately, it leans into one of the most tired and overused tropes of this genre, which again is amnesia. The trouble with this trope is that Greta remembers key details when the plot calls for it, and most of the time finds herself blindly led through various narrative beats that occur around her. The show plods along from one incredulous plot point to the next, all while slowly unveiling what happened in the past and what may be kept a secret, specifically what occurred at that concert. The trouble with this adaptation largely centers from the pacing and the lead antagonist, which comes in the form of a mustached assassin. Given his distinct look, it's a miracle that he manages to constantly evade police and detection for most of the show. And given the emphasis on police work here, it's pretty baffling that simple things like tracking vehicle registrations, which we even see caught on CCTV, and there's a scene that specifically discusses this, alongside releasing a police sketch to the public, again something that is discussed by the police within this show, but they only share it with a few people, are intentionally obfuscated just so we can keep the story running longer than it should. You'd also think that a police officer being called out to the scene of a domestic disturbance and then being brutally assaulted and taken to the hospital would warrant a deeper investigation. Well, not when Harlan Coben's the writer, but again, this is something that we also saw from Missing You earlier this year, which similarly seems to miss out the basics of police work. On top of all of this, we also get the nitty-gritty details of individual sequences that fall flat on their face to any sort of scrutiny. Here, it relies on characters acting completely against what we've come to expect from them. Remember that mustached assassin I mentioned, who easily kills people and works with brutal efficiency? Well, for 2 episodes here, he just drives around to different areas for seemingly no reason, with a subplot involving a character running away, spotted by a farmer, don't worry, this doesn't have any bearing on the main plot at all, and then is recaptured, all seemingly in place to superficially extend the drama so it hits a quota of 6 episodes and ends one of the episodes on a nice little cliffhanger. While we're on the subject of this hitman, another time Greta and her driver follow his car, and despite firing constantly on them, the pair wind up in a car accident, but yet the assassin doesn't follow up and kill her or the driver because the plot needs her to survive. And those twists are another point of contention here, and while yes, twists can definitely help elevate a mystery like this, much like Missing You, which I obviously mentioned earlier and similarly ripped into earlier this year on YouTube, you can check out the video here, there's a fine line between clever and farcical, and Just One Look definitely slips into the latter on numerous occasions. I won't reveal any of the twists here, don't worry, but what's even worse is that the show doesn't even have a good ending to back it all up. It just kind of ends. Given how long the show takes to reveal anything that's happening, it's pretty baffling that we get all the mysteries ticked off like a checklist, then the show just ends outright and fades to black. We get no resolution for certain characters, no emotional payoffs, and no closure for certain plot threads either. In fact, at one point, one character actually passes away, and they're a pretty significant character, but we don't really see any reaction from the family at all. Similarly, there's another weird thread here, which includes a woman who watches her neighbour have sex with other men because she's not happy in her own marriage, but it's so ludicrously tied to the main plot that it feels like a satire at times. This narrative involves a woman called Marilla, who just so happens to match with our assassin on a dating app. Oh, I meant to mention that earlier, the assassin actually uses a dating app to grab his victims, which again, seems a little similar to Missing You, doesn't it? He then shows up at her house for a first meet to have coffee, after she explains she doesn't usually trust men, and lo and behold, he turns out to be untrustworthy. But if she doesn't trust men, why on earth is she inviting him into her house, much less to have coffee? But then the way this is tied into the main plot comes from our disgruntled married woman, who notices the assassin wandering about and immediately suspects something is up when Marilla doesn't show up at the window. So she calls the police, despite apparently not really knowing too much about this woman outside of watching her every night. Yes, it does sound as stupid, far-fetched and ludicrous as this. Away from the narrative though, Just One Look also has a pretty cheap production budget, with simple sets and a dull colour palette, alongside a simple soundtrack and some very basic editing cues. So expect plenty of things like blurred edges and fish lens for flashback. It all feeds into that aforementioned formulaic feel, and there's nothing here that hasn't been done better elsewhere. Overall, Just One Look is probably an apt title for this Netflix original, because after one look, you're unlikely to return in a hurry. This is a simple, disappointingly mediocre mystery, and compared to other Harlan Coben adaptations, this one is definitely down there with one of the worst. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.